Before we begin and I introduce Mrs. Teldon, it's actually very special and very moving that one of our mechanchos reached out to us to dedicate this Farbrengen for a very special date. And I'll just pull up the name. This Farbrengen is dedicated for someone whose 25th birthday should have been today. A young and special soul who was taken from us. Yocheved Tova, Basi Badal Chaim Tevim of Abraham, Yocheved Garari, who has touched many of our lives through her struggles and inspires us to do what we can to bring more light and more strength and more encouragement into our classrooms, our students, and to everyone who we interact with. So Taka, her neshama should have an aliyah.
Amen.
And this Farbrengen is dedicated in her honor on this very special day. So in this last stretch of the year, it's time to really try to gather all of our inspiration, gather all of our kaiches, because Hakol Halech Achar Hachitaim, that's the theme of our Farbrengen. And we're so lucky to have with us today Mrs. Chaya Teldon, who is here to speak to us and be mechazik us to really take advantage, the chaperein of these last few weeks of school. Mrs. Teldon is someone who has extensive experience in so many different facets of chinuch. Mrs. Teldon is a longtime shlucha in Long Island and was involved in chinuch even before that. She was the head of school for many years of the Jewish Academy of Long Island. She was my seminary teacher, to my great fortune. And she's someone who speaks from the heart. So anything that Mrs. Teldon shares, you know that you can take it to heart and run with it. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. No pressure. No pressure. All right. Good evening, ladies, and thanks for joining. Many, many moons ago, before I was married, I learned the mimer Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha. And at that time, I had entertained thoughts of being a teacher. But after learning that mimer, my chavrusa and I both looked at each other and said, there is no way, according to that mimer, that we could dare step in front of a classroom. Who would ever teach? And the responsibility for such a holy task of educating young children. And here we are many years later. That mimer was written first in 1944 and was reprinted in 1965. And it is still as current and as on target as any research paper or any new psychological studies that have come out in the ensuing years. So what does it say there about chinuch? Listen to this quote. It says, education entails tremendous responsibility, demands arduous and laborious work, and can only be carried out with profound spiritual and physical exertion.
I apologize, Mrs. Teldon. I accidentally muted you instead of somebody else. So the last thing we heard is exertion.
Exertion. Well, that's exhausting. That's perfect. Meaning that teaching is not for the weak of heart. It is not for those who can't get their hands and feet dirty in the trenches. And to that point, I think that as the world comes out of COVID and this pandemic mindset, and there, I don't know in your neighborhood, but in my neighborhood, there are signs all over, front lawns, businesses, driveways, talking about the frontline workers and the heroes. That, according to this mimer, would be each and every one of you. Every teacher every mechaneches, every administrator that is involved in chinuch has the title frontline worker. And hero would be probably an appropriate accolade to add to the list of the job description. Like any chassid worth their weight, and could be that you ate your way through this pandemic year, so we all have a little more weight to us, but possibly. I was thinking that at a siyum, at a conclusion of something, Chassidus demands from us that we review, that we reboot, that we recalibrate. And I started to make a list, and it just kept growing. It's a time to refresh, to rebuild, to receive, to remind, to relax, to remember, to relinquish, perhaps to replenish, to respond. These are all that at a siyum, at a conclusion of an educational year, are tools that we could all employ to hone our craft, to polish our skills, reflecting on the past and hopefully focusing on the future. Now, it was mentioned to me that it's quite possible that there are those in the holy chevra of teachers that after this grueling year, maybe people are reconsidering returning to the glorious task of chinuch. Maybe it just was too much, and people are thinking about throwing in the towel. So I want to share a few thoughts, and these are not from the Mimer, but culled from various places, and I believe that you'll recognize them. First of all, this year was exactly as it was supposed to be. The Eibishter does not make mistakes, not globally, not communally, not personally, exactly as it was supposed to be. And your classroom and your educational challenges were given to you, designed specifically, if we want to call it a designer garment, specifically made for you by none other than the Eibishter himself. Challenging? In my house, one of the words that is not kosher is duh. But if there would be a time to be able to say duh, I think when we reflect on this year, we could say, yeah, challenging? Yeah, I think so. Let's give a few examples. Dealing with technology. Now, some came to the year with a briefcase full of technology, and some of us were just like stupefied. And then you have students that could make shtick with technology. That was a challenge unto itself. Preparing double lessons for those who had to do a hybrid class, students in class and students on Zoom, and then they switched. So who's in class? Are we sitting behind? Kids can't breathe, they can't talk. And perhaps you saw that, that video of all the ways that students could use their face mask for target practice, for parachutes, for blowing their nose, for arts and crafts, etc., etc. So just the physical structure of the classroom, you know, was a challenge. Maybe you look for support and it wasn't forthcoming. There was absenteeism. Shtick by one of my grandchildren said, oh, Bubbly, we just had to say to mute, and the whole class was like, and the poor teacher was left trying to figure out if it's real or not. There was juggling nonstop, and for those who are blessed with a family, it was juggling family, kids at home, perhaps husband home, no job, stress beyond. So when we come to the end of the year, it behooves us to figure out what happened. And yet, this year was, and every year, in terms of chinuch, is not about the pasuk. Maybe I'm going to lose my membership card. It's not about the equations. It's not about completing another chapter, and it was not about another parak. Not about reports, not about testing, because chinuch is about the individual child. Chinuch is about your student, and nothing bigger nothing can displace that. It's all about the student. The world is coming around to this idea in terms of the workplace, where there has to be more than the bottom line, more than the buck, more than earning that money. It's what are we doing to impact the world? What's our mission statement? So we could say it's all about the relationships, everything. So I want you to reflect for a moment. Could you think about a teacher? Go back as far as you can. First of all, a teacher whose name you still remember. Could be from kindergarten, second grade, maybe a high school teacher. Seriously impacted your life. Think a minute, for real. And see if you can identify what was the salient point about that teacher. Why did he or she make such an impact that years down the road, you still remember them? Now, in parentheses, I'm going to say it could have been a negative experience. That would also fit into this point of the conversation. What teacher stands out in your mind? I would love it to be a positive one, but think about who and why. And then we can ask ourselves, what would my students say about me? What imprint am I leaving? Besides the knowledge, besides the information that you have imparted to them. We're talking about, I guess, kishkes. How have you impacted your students? And one of the reasons I think it's good to think about this now is that there's still, for most of us, a month left to school. And that means if there's any T's that were not crossed or I's that weren't dotted, we can look at them seriously and perhaps repair them. I shared this at a chinuch conference, but again, I don't know the broader audience, so I'm going to share it again. In a public high school here, 2 years ago, there were some unpleasant occurrences with students. Perhaps there was a suicide in the public school, and there was a lot of trauma going on. And the principal, bless him, realized that he had to do something. So listen to this. There's about 800-900 students in that school. He called a faculty meeting in a very large, I don't know which room, maybe in the school lunchroom. And every student's name was on a post-it. The walls were filled. I don't remember if it was alphabetical order or by grade alphabetical order. Every single student was represented. Each teacher got 10 stickers, and they had to go and put a sticker on students that they teach, that they have a personal relationship with. So they all got up and they walked around the room, found their students, and put a green sticker on 10 students' names. And he asked everyone to sit down. And then he said, now, everybody has red stickers. I want you to look at students who are in your bubble, in your grade level, who you teach, that nobody put a sticker on. That means that no teacher felt they had a personal relationship with that student. They went around, they noticed, and they put a sticker where they felt in the coming weeks, they would now establish a relationship with those students. And everyone sat down. And then he said, let's look at all of the students who have no stickers. There was silence. And thank goodness, this principal was wise enough that someone went around and wrote down every student who had no sticker and said, these are the chevra, these are the kids that are going to fall through the cracks. And we must do our best to catch them, to prevent, to pick them up before they fall, to catch them. So I thought that was so powerful, the visual and the actual. There are students of ours that are either good, meaning they don't make any trouble, they don't act out, they show up, they do their homework, they raise their hand, or they don't. And Shalom Yisrael. There are students that, I'm almost going to say, through no fault of anyone. The class is big, the time is short, the lesson plan is, pushing you on. But this is ultimately what chinuch is about. You and I could impact on an individual basis, and we must, each one of our students. So let's see what we could do about that. Think about it. We have a month left of school. Every student needs a place to dump. A woman many years ago went into the Rebbe, and she had a lot of tsaros, apparently. A lot of stuff going on. And she had her yichidus, and it was over. And she approached the door, and the Rebbe called her back. And the Rebbe said to her, Ich will, as du sollst losen eire peklich da. I want you to leave it here by me. It's not going to make me any more schwer. It's not going to weigh me down, but it's going to lighten your load. So I want you to leave it by me. One of my favorite stories. As teachers, one of the roles, I believe, according to the Mimer, according to all the great language about teachers, educators, is that we are a source for a lot of things, not just the pasuk or the math equation, but a source and a resource. Can your students share with you? Can they dump? And it doesn't have to be all your students, but are they trusting you enough that they can feel good about sharing? Are you sensitive enough to notice them? And I believe the answer is yes. We have to take the time. And maybe now, as school is winding down, I know there's tests and exams and finals, but don't forget that the classroom is made up of individuals. If a student wanted to reach you during the summer, how would they do that? Is that something within your purview? Perhaps if you give, summer homework or summer suggestions or summer reading lists, would you include an email, maybe a special email for your students, or an envelope where they could write to you? The students need to know that you care about them. And it's, what is that expression? They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think this assemblage, this holy assemblage, this holy Zoom assemblage is capable of doing. Students need an adult they can trust. And certainly, I want to make a connection to the young woman whose birthday is today, and who people have established an awareness now of the necessity for our young people to have who to talk to. And so you are the heroes and the frontline workers. And I think that's pretty awesome. Let me stop a minute. Anybody want to talk, share, put something out there? And don't be shy. You're used to being in front of a classroom. On my screen, because I'm so tech savvy, I could only see 5 people, but I know you're out there. I see there's more. So
Hashem, we have more than 40 mechanchas on. You can unmute yourself or you can type something into the chat. So tell them if you can't see the chat, I'll let you know if somebody shares something. Or people are just sharing how much they are enjoying. Anyone would like to add, ask, or contribute to the Farbrengen?
Right. How do teachers reboot? So I want to speak a little bit right here about hiskashrus. I think there's something so powerful that in the beginning of the school year, so Bezras Hashem, come September, that the class, no matter what the age, writes a communal duch together to the Rebbe. And this could be part of the, the beginning, the first 6 weeks, the class rules and the class goals. Sometimes we do hopes and dreams in the beginning of the year, but a duch that is chiseled down, you write all the thoughts and then it's chiseled down. It could be posted on the classroom wall, and throughout the school year, you can point to it. And if there would be, God forbid, a disruption or something going on in the classroom, in my part of the world, we would say bad vibes in the classroom, then what's our anchor? We go back to the duch. And now, as the year ends, you would be able to write a collective duch to the Rebbe. Everyone could sign. We met our goals. This is what we're still going to work on in the coming year, etc. Certainly for a teacher to write at the beginning of the year and throughout the year a duch to the Rebbe is, I think, imperative. And that will keep a teacher focused. It will keep the class focused. And let's say there's a buzz between, 3 girls, 3 students. Give them paper and pen and say, you know what, I think, again, obviously depending on your school and the amount of space the Rebbe takes up with the student body, but it is our guiding light. This is our anchor. This is why we're doing it. It's not the paycheck. We're supposed to educate Jewish children, and we can do that. But writing in is imperative. Teaching is not a job, Al Pi Torah. It's your kishkes, your being. And if you're feeling burnt out, it's for sure time to write in. If you're frustrated, all of those things, we have to stay connected. It is just our anchor. It's our oxygen mask. What else?
Can I share a story about that, about a kid writing in? So this happened several years ago with a class that's now in high school. But there was a class that was having a very hard time, and obviously sole issue. There was one girl who was giving everybody a hard time, and nobody knew what to do about it. And the kids were really suffering from it. And the principal tried, and everybody was trying. The teachers tried. Everyone tried to help with it. And then one day, something happened, like a big event happened where the kid got so upset that she ended up speaking to the principal and then writing letters to the kids and apologizing. And it turned around, and Baruch Hashem, it really improved a lot. And right after that happened, one of the girls told her friends quietly, she said, I was at the aisle, I don't know, whatever day, like a few days ago. And I asked the Rebbe that helps us with obviously saw in our class. These girls were in 3rd grade. And she saw the results and she was so, so happy. And the whole class was so inspired from it. And Baruch Hashem, it really, really came a long way after that. So.
It's beautiful. That is our anchor. And Miriam, you're blessed to have a school that has that framework. If it's a, Torah day school somewhere, it might not be so pashut, but the teacher for sure could write in, because chinuch is a holy task. I want to.
We have another question in the chat. Yeah. Could respond to that. Any ideas how to deal with anxiety generated by growing anti-Semitism? Kids hear stuff at home, and the world feels very frightening to many kids. I think we're coming from one cause for anxiety to another, from COVID to Eretz Yisrael to many things in between. So do you have any ideas for how we can be machazik our students in this world?
First of all, I'm going to say, everybody feel free to chime in if anybody has suggested what they've done in their school. But I would say tzedakah every day. I was just by some of my grandchildren. I said, in your school, it's a Torah day school, do you give tzedakah every day? Maybe yes, sometimes yes. To make sure that we give tzedakah. A letter in the Sefer Torah is so wonderful for kids, for sure, out of town. Everybody should have, and you'll explain to your children. And obviously, Mifta Mezuzah. These are all things that they should told us, protect Yidden. So I think, like any other time, it's important for children to express their fears, maybe not berabim, because if a child didn't have a fear and now they're going to hear about this, from their home, they didn't hear about anti-Semitism. So maybe it could be a writing prompt, on an individual basis. This, I think, is an area where, for sure, a teacher needs to know her students and then could help them walk through this. We talk about Jewish pride. Sometimes that might be contradictory to what they're hearing at home. Tuck your tzitzis in, don't wear your yarmulke in public. You have to wear a baseball cap. It depends what the child is hearing. But for us to strengthen, I would say it's tzedakah. It's a letter in the Sefer Torah, and you might want to get a sponsor for that, or a class parent, or the PTA might want to give each child $1 if it hasn't already happened, so that everybody could have a letter in the Sefer Torah. That's the idea of achdus, of unity. Challenging. It is challenging. Anybody have a suggestion about that? What they've done in their school, or what they're doing in their, I don't know. We have to be proud.
I could just say, if you don't want, what I've tried to do is just incorporate the themes, where like bring it into all the areas that you're already doing. Davening and Inyan and Chumash. We learned in Parshas Kairach about the Ketira stopping the Medgefa. So I had my students actually make, make an advertisement for Ketiris, and how Ketiris signifies Achdus and connection to Hashem, and it stops the Medgefa. The themes of Bitachon, any of the themes that will strengthen them, rather than giving them speeches about it, just like find the places to bring them in practical ways.
Right.
And also by davening, don't just daven, bring in Yanim during davening time, that what we're davening for, what we're saying. The kids really relate to it without you having to tell them, don't be afraid of what's going on in the world.
I think it's also, if you can make if you have a sister school in Eretz Yisrael, excuse me, or you can contact somebody in Eretz Yisrael, in Ashdod, in Hebron, in place, anywhere, and have a Zoom or pen pal with children, so they will hear that children in Eretz Yisrael are feeling okay, and maybe it'll be mechazik the kids in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know, somehow to partner with another school might be kedai. And in a Chabad school, let the children also write in and ask for a bracha for the safety and security of Klal Yisrael. I think it's just very, very powerful.
Thank you. Yeah. There's one more question, which maybe you're anyways planning on answering, and also the panel afterwards is going to address this. But let's hear your thoughts first, Mrs. Heldon. Any ideas how to instill a specific chayas at the end of the year? How to, renew the excitement for learning? How do you inspire students?
So younger students, I think it's obviously easier to do. Maybe somebody who's, those who are teaching older students, God bless them. God bless the teachers, and God bless the students. Going through teenage years now and teaching teenagers, it's a huge challenge. But I'm out of the loop in this. I don't know if you give a summer reading list, if there's incentives for what the students do during the summer, but the Rebbe used the mashal of a swimming pool, if I'm not mistaken, why the summer is important, that you, if I remember the visual, you take a deep breath when you dive into the pool, and it fills your lungs till you are able to get, come, you get to the other side of the pool, you come up for air. That's a healthy summer, and then you are ready to dive in again. So it is important. I don't know if there's, again, incentives for summer reading lists. You can challenge older students. What are you reading? I have it on my list here. What are your goals? What is the teacher's goal for the summer? What's on your reading list? What skills do you want to polish? Because a teacher also, especially this year, you just want to breathe. I know I went out today without a mask to a public gathering. It was like water on a wilted flower. So everybody needs that recharging. But the ultimate way, I don't know, is through our hiskashrus. I don't know how else. If anybody else has a suggestion. Sneas, or somebody wrote Sneas impacts. You know, you have to be so careful when older kids maybe are going to roll their eyes. We have to make sure that we are that living example, and I think actions like that speak 1,000 words. What do they say? A picture is worth 1,000 words. Our students have to see us, and our simchas hachayim, we have to come into the classroom happy, ready. We have to ooze love for our students. That is what it's all about, our passion. So I don't know how much more time I have. I want to end with a story, yes? Also, I think every new story I hear, I say it's like my favorite story, but here's my new favorite story, that when the Tzemach Tzedek had to go to Moscow at one point to argue on behalf of the Jewish people, there was some gezeirus, who knows what was going on, and he had to visit government officials. So on the way, he stopped at the gravesite of his mother, Rebbe Devorah Leah, and the Tzemach Tzedek davened and wrote a pan. And the Tzemach Tzedek left, and God bless the Chassidim. After the Rebbe left, they took the pan and they read it. So I guess we would call that perhaps Shtus Kedusha. I'm not sure what else to call it, but Chutzpah de Kedusha. I don't know. They did it. So it said like this, but this is the ending, and this is what I felt was most impactful. The Rebbe said, I know that you will sigh, accomplish what you want. I'm asking that I have the zchus to be part of the process. So dear teachers, the Eibishter is going to accomplish, the Rebbe is going to accomplish, but how grand, how great, how privileged, how awesome, how holy that teachers have the zchus to be part of the process to bring about the most heartfelt desire of the Rebbe, and that is to have Mashiach Dolamata. So I want to wish everyone a gesunte Zumer. It should be a healthy, begashmius uberuchnius. Prepare yourselves for the holy task for the coming year. In the event that Mashiach comes before the end of school, I'm telling everyone you'll get a bonus and a raise and your salary. Everybody who's behind, you'll get paid. Not to worry. It's in the air, to quote Rabbi Gutman. But in the event that September comes, that the new year, the new school year comes, and Mashiach is like standing outside the doors, they'll listen that you are the frontline workers, and you will be in Shura Rishon. That's lacha to everyone, and sei gebencht.
Amen.